Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Cereal at Midnight. My name is Heath, and in this episode, we are talking about Cold War creatures, 4 films from Sam Katzman. This is a gorgeous, brand new box set from Arrow Video that collects 4 films from the legendary exploitation producer that take place within a specific time frame. They were made between 1955 and 1957. They all have a very heavy Cold War paranoia theme. We're talking about, the kinds of monster movies that we're talking about. They're very specific. The idea of science created them, but nothing could stop them. That sort of a thing. That very specific 50s horror, thriller, whatever it is. It walks the line, right? These movies are wonderful. I love this box set. Sam Katzman deserves celebration. And it's weird on the surface to get a box set for a producer. You get them for directors, you get them for stars, you even get them for studios. Like, we got the Shaw Scope box set coming out with all those Shaw Brothers movies, also from Arrow. But Sam Katzman was a producer. And I love Sam Katzman. Whatever was trendy at the time, the 1930s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s, whatever was happening, whatever was going on in the zeitgeist of the culture, he was there. He's responsible for, we did a CerealAtMidnite spotlight on the 1948, I think it is, Superman serial. That's Sam Katzman. He also did Batman and Robin serials. We talk about Jungle Jim, when Johnny Weissmuller became too old, when he aged out of Tarzan. Sam Katzman creates the Jungle Jim. Now it's based on it's based on pulp roots, but they create the Jungle Jim film franchise. They're not serials, they're films. And when they lost the rights to the Jungle Jim name, when Katzman loses the rights to the Jungle Jim brand name, they just start calling Johnny Weissmuller Johnny. He becomes Johnny. He becomes himself in these movies. They're like, oh, we don't need the name. Sam Katzman was a genius. He's an incredibly interesting character, and it's fun to see him getting his due via a box set like this. Before we go any further, I want to say that this review that you're watching, this video review, is half of what I have to say about this. There is also a written review at CerealAtMidnite.com that I will link to in the description of this video. I'll probably put it in the comments as well. I have so much to say about this box set. Details about the movies themselves, the actors, the directors, the writers. I really got extremely I got very detailed in my review for this. There's so much to talk about. So this is half of it. Go check out the other half at CerealAtMidnite.com. Let's talk about the movies themselves. This package is gorgeous. Beautiful box. I've left this flap on for the purpose of this review, but this is what's included if you want to just freeze that really quick. But the movies themselves come from the Columbia Pictures archives. They look gorgeous. I mean, they look really fantastic. These are B movies, right? These are low budget exploitation movies built around a theme. In the case of Creature with the Atom Brain, it's built around the idea that, it almost like, how with Cannon and even with Roger Corman, they start with a poster or a title. Sam Katzman would do he'd just sit down and write titles, and then he would send these out to writers, and they would come up with a story around this. So that's what we're talking about, and a true King of the Bees. But Creature with the Atom Brain is about this exiled mob boss who gets sent away. He hooks up with this ex-Nazi, and they come back as an ex-Nazi scientist, I should say, because they're all themed around science or man's hubris. They very much fall within the Cold War era. So he hooks up with this Nazi scientist, and they figure out a way to turn dead people into essentially robots. They are controlled by atom brains. They have scars across their foreheads. It's fantastic fun. Early use of squibs, maybe the first use of squibs, where someone gets shot and you see it tearing into their clothes. That's uncommon, right? Because this is an exploitation movie. They're just zooming in on it. It's right there in front of the camera. The first 3 minutes of this movie, somebody gets bent backwards in half. If you've seen The Rocketeer, I think The Rocketeer is a direct callback to this, because it's in shadow, right? But someone just gets folded in half backwards. Tremendous fun. The packaging for this, Arrow has really outdone themselves. So first of all, we have new artwork for all 4 of these films. But I like the original, so I have waited for this video to actually flip the artwork around. So here's the new. Actually, I'll do this. I'll hold this up if you want to freeze frame it and read it to your heart's content. But that's the new. I'm going to go with the original. I always prefer original poster art. So with each of these packages, they have given us, we have 2 posters that present, show you this. We have 2 posters for the 4 films. They're double-sided, so it's a shame we couldn't get 4 posters, 1 poster for each movie, but there's Creature with the Atomic Brain. And then spoilers for the Art of the Werewolf, which is the next movie we're going to talk about, but there's the poster for the Werewolf. I wish we had 4 posters instead of 2 double-sided posters. But I'll also say that these discs are loaded. Oh, I didn't talk about the lobby cards. Each film comes with 3 replica lobby cards from that movie, for whatever movie is in the package, which is just nice. There were more lobby cards. Stay tuned. We're not finished talking about lobby cards because it's all here. If you love these movies, it's all here. By the way, here's the card. Arrow puts a card in for upcoming releases. So we got the Phantom of the Mall. Let's talk about the special features on this because they are copious. So Kim Newman has done a new introduction for every single one of these movies. They vary in time, but they average to about 10 minutes. Some of them are 8, some of them are 12. They average out to about 10 minutes each. We've got a new audio commentary by critic Russell Dyball. There is a feature length, it's 1 hour and 14 minutes, feature called Sam Katzman Before and Beyond the Cold War Creatures, a brand new feature-length illustrated presentation on the life, career, and films of Sam Katzman by historian and critic Stephen R. Bissett, and it is fantastic. I will be revisiting it. It's almost like a convention panel, like a PowerPoint presentation. Clearly, it's done in a time of COVID, but it's Stephen R. Bissett, basically just walking us through multiple assets through the career of Sam Katzman. So lobby cards, posters, behind-the-scenes footage, and then narrating the career of Sam Katzman for 1 hour and 14 minutes. It's fascinating stuff. This also has the 8mm, the Super 8mm version of Creature with the Atom Brain, theatrical trailer, and image gallery. So that's just the first disc. Second disc is The Werewolf. This is my favorite movie of the entire package. It's the best movie. It's a noir-influenced horror movie that really has themes of like The Fugitive, which hadn't been invented yet. This is 1956. And The Incredible Hulk, which also had not been invented yet, which makes you wonder how much of this ended up in maybe Stan Lee's formula. But instead of the moon controlling our werewolf, science has created our werewolf. He's been injected with an irradiated wolf blood in an experiment by 2 scientists. Again, Cold War. We have science, we can use science, and we think it makes our lives better, but what are the consequences? I'll go even further. The whole reason they inject him is that they think they've created a vaccine to protect him from atomic fallout, or to protect people from atomic fallout. So we haven't changed. This is becoming a running theme in Serial at Midnight videos because we talk about a lot of older things here. We haven't changed. This is 1956. Vaccines, messing with science, consequences for man's hubris. It's fascinating stuff. And the movie is great, and again, instead of the moon controlling him, now it's angry or like fear. So you can just imagine him being like, "Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." And then he turns into the werewolf. But it's great. It's got a great transformation scene. Of course, this is the shadow of the Wolfman, right? The Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman. So it's not like an American Werewolf in London or something like that. It's a 50s monster movie, but it's really good. Let's flip this art around. Well, I'll show you this first. I'll hold this up for you so we get a good look at that package. And then there is the flip side, which of course I prefer. I think that's just great. That's magnificent. It has another introduction by Kim Newman on it. It has a commentary by, who did the commentary on this one? Lee Gambin, who does great commentaries. Beyond Window Dressing, a brand new visual essay exploring the oft-overlooked role of women in the films of Sam Katzman by historian and critic Alexandra Heller-Nicholas. It's praising, it's complimentary, because there were a lot of women in these Sam Katzman movies, and they've got things to do. This is the era where a lot of women in these 50s movies, westerns, science fiction movies, horror movies, they're either there to scream or they're there to say, "What's that, doctor?" Not necessarily the case in these Sam Katzman movies, which is very interesting. So we have a visual essay kind of explaining how that was special. The Super 8 millimeter version of the Werewolf, theatrical trailer, image gallery. We have our other poster with, let's do this. Oh, I dropped it. With the zombies of Maura on one side, and the giant claw on the other side. And as with the other films included in this package, we have the 3 lobby cards. And again, there were more than 3 lobby cards for this film that are not physically reproduced, but stay tuned. I should also say, I guess this is the limited edition of this package. Does this say, I just want to make sure it says, if this says limited edition contents. Yeah, so some of the stuff that we're talking about here will not be included in the standard re-release version once this is sold out. All right, so let's move on to Zombies of Maura. Now, this is the one where science plays the least role. These takes place in Africa, but there are no black people in this movie, which is, it's like, okay, well, and it's interesting because in the commentaries and stuff they talk about, well, maybe that's a good thing, because this movie would not really, it doesn't necessarily know what to do with what it's got, and it might end up having been more insulting. But it's interesting, right? It's nevertheless, it's 1957. I think this is 57, yeah. This is an early, of course it predates George Romero's Night of the Living Dead by 11 years. So it's a different kind of zombie. It's a voodoo zombie. We're getting back to White Zombie, right? The Bela Lugosi, not the band. The Bela Lugosi movie from 1932, I think it is. But it's got a lot of themes that we would later see in John Carpenter's The Fog. There's treasure and a sunken ship, and these people come and they want to get the treasure, and then the survivors who died they're zombies in this movie, but they're like, nuh-uh. That's what they're like. And so, there's where the horror comes from, and it's got some really cool stuff in it. It also stars, what is her name? The woman that would, it's in my written review, but the woman who would play 1 year later, she'd be in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman as the 50-Foot Woman. She's in this movie as well as she's just sort of a dark, beautiful character she actually gets a lot to do in the movie, but, it's fun, that's the thing. Like, all these movies are competently made by people who knew exactly how to work in the B-movie system. And they cranked these out. Sam Katzman made 200, he produced it's like 238, I think is the final tally on IMDb. 238 films in his lifetime. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. But I haven't seen all 238, that's for sure. But I've seen a fair amount of Sam Katzman movies, and I really enjoy them. They are the kinds of movies that I want to watch. You could watch them ironically, but I choose to enjoy them because they have a lot of, they have actors that I want to see, they have settings that I think are interesting, and they have storylines that are a lot of fun. They're not long enough to get bored with either. That's the thing, most of these movies, I think the longest one is like an hour and 20 minutes. I think this one is 70 minutes. So this has our introduction by Kim Newman. It's got a commentary by Kat Ellinger, who's all over the place right now. And it has a featurette, Atomic Terror, Genre and Transformation, a brand new visual essay exploring the intersection of mythical horror creatures and the rational world of science in the films of Sam Katzman. That's by Josh Hurtado. Theatrical trailer, image gallery. No Super 8 movie for this. I went down sort of a rabbit hole seeing if they even made, if a Super 8 millimeter version exists for this, and I was inconclusive. I never found one, but maybe they made it and it was super limited, but I think there's a reason that it's not on here, and I think it's because it doesn't exist. But we'll put a star by that, which is that maybe it does, and I just didn't see it. All right, so that's our third movie. Our final movie is where things kind of fall apart. The Giant Claw is notorious, right? And those of you who know, it's very well put together. It kind of harkens back to, it's like the Native American legend of the Thunderbird, you know, this giant mystical bird, the supernatural bird that descends from the heavens, all powerful. Not to be confused with the Quetzalcoatl, Q the winged serpent. That's what we're talking about, you know. Just like a bird. But here's the thing. So the movie takes itself fairly seriously. I mean, it's got some humor and stuff in it, but I'm looking for the specifics of who. Okay, so Harryhausen was he didn't do this movie. I think it's inconclusive if he was even approached, if he declined it, or if he was not asked by Katzman. But Harryhausen is who you want to do your giant bird, right? They didn't do that. They went with a marionette, like a marionette puppet. And it just doesn't work. It looks like something out of a children's show, like a children's television show. The bird, it has like big goofy eyes. It feels like if it could talk, it feels like it would talk like this. Oh, what are you guys doing? That's not what you want for your horror movie, unless you're trying to be ironic, and this movie is not. So this theme of like, you know, well, we can build, the bird tears down the United Nations building, it tears down the Empire State Building. It's just like a homage to King Kong. But at the end of the day, the bird doesn't work. So all of this falls apart. So then it becomes this thing that's just rife for Mystery Science Theater 3000 mockery, which is really unfortunate because otherwise it has a lot of interesting themes and things to say. But it's still interesting to look at thematically because we can talk about what didn't work, and it's the thing that stopped Sam Katzman making these science fiction movies, because they had been doing diminished returns over the course of these 4, and it's not just these 4 movies. He was making other movies in other places with other people, but it was just diminishing returns, right? And so by the time we get to the giant claw and everything happens and the star of the movie is so embarrassed at the screening, he leaves the theater, it's over. And then we move on. He would move on to other things, right? Because he was an exploitation director. So what's popular? Let's do that. Rock and roll movies, Teens Gone Wild, twists, movie about the twist, 2 movies about don't knock the twist, hippie movies, biker movies. He would just go into all that stuff. He never stopped, never slowed down. Worked with Elvis, you know, cast Elvis in some movies. But this was the end. It was just really a brief burst of mid-50s science fiction goodness that really called upon our fears, like we're messing with things that we don't totally understand. Here's our 3 lobby cards. And you notice none of the lobby cards have the bird in it, because it doesn't work. Now, that's the 4th movie. That's not the end of the package. There is so much extra value stuff here. So we also have 2 books. I'm going to start with this one, Cold War Creatures Art. This is a square-bound 80-page, I think it's 80 pages. It's got an essay introduction to each of the movies and by Stephen R. Bissett. And so we've got the essay. And then it is just page after page of original imagery from the promo. A dead man stalks his prey. Here is horror that can happen now to you. That's 50s sci-fi, you guys. A dead man walks the streets to stalk his prey. So terrifying, only screams can describe it. Got lobby cards. And then they get stills from the movie. You've got the production shots, you know, like they would do the cast shots of the people, you know, freeze frames and production, still photos and stuff. The werewolf, I'm trying to find, here we go. What does it say? You see it happen. The horror of all mankind terrifies the screen. Scientists turn men into beasts. You see it happen. That's what it says. Turn a man into a bloodthirsty fang and claw beast before your very eyes. It's amazing stuff. And then, come on, give me... Here we go. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You know, like studio still shots. Got his gun right there. So 80 pages of this. See if they never do show the giant claw. But it's bad. Oh, is it bad? Like here, diagonally. playing tic-tac-toe. Okay, so that's great. That's not even it. That's just the art book. So we have another 60-page book, Cold War Creatures, Essays, and that is exactly what it is. It's an essay. Va-va-voom. It's an essay for each of the films included. Wow, so cool. So again, and this is where you really get into the nuts and bolts. Sam Katzman, the Sultan of Schlock. We're really getting into the nuts and the bolts of what makes these movies so special. You know, the thing that we have the benefit of now, the thing that I'm so grateful for with box sets, so these movies have been on disc before, right? There's a DVD set. In fact, I think the DVD set had all 4 movies, and for a while it was like $15. And if you only care about the movies, that was a great deal. But when we get into what Arrow is doing and what some of these other distributors are doing, it's scholarly. It's looking at the films themselves from a very different perspective of, like, I'm going to reference Mystery Science Theater 3000 again. It's a very different perspective of, like, hey, look how silly this is. Ha ha ha, well, that special effect didn't work. That's irony. But if you can cut through that and you can look at the core of where these movies are coming from, it's an accident, right? Sam Katzman never set out to make something that spoke about the times he was living in, or the art that he was creating. But here we are later with a wonderful snapshot of what movies of the 50s were like, what we were afraid of, what our hopes were, what life was like. These movies have a lot to say about our paranoia, and again, how we haven't changed. There's so much to be learned from the context, learning about the people that made them. There was a guy that was on the blacklist, but Sam Katzman used him anyway. They just used a different name. We'll talk about Fred Sears, who made so many movies with Sam Katzman. Workaholic, workman director, just movie after movie after movie, drops dead at 44 from a heart attack. Probably because he was working so much. There are stories behind these movies that are so interesting, and you don't get them if you're making fun of the movie or you're watching this stuff ironically. So I'm tremendously grateful that we are in an era right now that we have never been in before, where we're getting the best presentation of these movies, and we're also getting the stories behind the movies. I mean, you guys, there's like at least 10 hours worth of stuff here. You've got all the movies, you've got all the commentaries, and then each one of these discs has the special features that are, you know, a minimum of 30 minutes each, and the 8mm movie version. I mean, I just feel so grateful, you know? I feel so grateful. This is not going to be for everybody, but it's an option. And how wonderful that this is an option, that we as cinephiles, film fans, I'm going to say collectors, have the opportunity to add something like this to our shelves and really learn more about these movies in a way that moves the needle, that is substantial to our fandom and to why we love the things that we love. Clearly, I'm very passionate about this set. Again, this is just part of the review. The other part is at CerealAtMidnite.com. I give this my highest recommendation. I'm going to put links to where you can purchase this in the description of this video. Let me know what you think about this. Am I alone? Surely I'm not. This is just next level film preservation, because they are not just giving us the movies, they're teaching us about the movies too. And I think that is tremendous. Guys, thank you so much. Take care. Until next time, here's where to go and what to do.